So, Ivan, thank you for joining the show again. Thank you for your time. I consider this part two. And today we're going to talk about your book, Who's in Your Room?
Yeah.
Right. And did you want to touch a little bit on that before we jump into the questions?
Yeah. So, the concept of who's in your room is basically imagine that you live your life in one room. And that one room has only one door. Wait a minute, over there.
There
One
it
door.
is.
And that one door is an enter only door. So when people come into your room or into your life, they're there forever.
Hmm.
You can never get them out. Now, luckily, it's a metaphor, but if it were real, Jesus, if it were real, would you be more selective about the people that you let into your life?
Well, yeah, I would think more than twice on
Yeah.
who would go in if I can't have them come out of the room.
Yeah, well, that's what everyone says. And so our question in the book was, then why aren't we more careful
Hmm.
about who we
I
let
like
into
that.
our room? And the truth is, I would argue that it's more than a metaphor. And here's why. What I want you to do, and anyone who's watching this, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to think of somebody that you got out of your life, because people say, well, it is a metaphor, because I've gotten people out of my life.
Hmm.
Okay. So think of somebody that you got out of your life, Jesus. I'm not going to make you name who it is. You're
Okay,
safe.
that's good.
Right. I want you to think of somebody that you got out of your life, and maybe they were difficult, they were toxic. You just didn't want to work with them. You got them out of your life. You got somebody in your mind.
I do.
All right. Now I want you to think. I want you to think about what they did to you that
Mm.
made you really angry and really wanted them out of your life. And if you're watching this, I want you to do the same.
Mm.
So, have you thought of an experience, a situation that was the reason why you wanted them out?
I did. Yeah.
All right. So here's the deal. If they're still in your head, they're still in your room, and they will be for the rest of your life. Because the truth is, your room starts here and ends here. It is your head. It is all the experiences that you've had in your life. We interviewed Dr. Daniel Amen, the neuroscientist and psychiatrist. And one of the things he said was that people that you meet, the relationships that you have in business and in life, their fingerprints are on your brain for the rest of your life.
Mm. That's
And
true.
so the truth is, people that you let into your life will impact it for the rest of your life in some way, even if you get them out of your life. And so what we argue in there is that you got to be more selective about who you allow into your life.
Yeah. And it makes me think about this one quote, and I'm totally going to chop it up, is it doesn't matter what you say, is how you made them feel. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is so true. And that's what ran through my mind whenever you were talking about that. Now, what got you interested in writing this book from the get-go? Like, what was the motivation or the inspiration behind it?
So I heard the concept from my co-author, Stuart Emery, and I loved the concept so much. I asked him if he was going to do a book. He said yes. I said when? He said, I don't know. I'm working on it. And then I saw him 6 months later, and I said, how's the book coming? He said, well, I haven't really started it. I'm like, oh, man, I really want to promote this book. It's a great concept because
Yeah.
I run a network. I run BNI, and the people you put in the room are critical.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, well, you're going to start writing? He said, yes. And I saw him 6 months later, and I said, have you started writing? He said, no. He said, look, do you want to write it with me? And I said, yes. And so he invited me to participate in doing the book. And we're actually now working on a second edition, which will be expanded.
That's awesome. Now, one of the things too is, do other people really have that much power in determining your happiness? And if so, why? Because when I think of that or that situation that you're mentioning to me, I was like, yeah, that was an ugly situation. I wish I wouldn't have had to go through that or want anyone to go through that kind of situation. And it just put a really bad taste in my mouth, right?
Yeah.
But what's your take on that?
Well, I think what happens is we give them the power.
Mhm.
We give them that opportunity to do those things.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's what you have to really be careful of. And there are cases where you've let them into your room, you didn't know any better, and then we can talk about how do you screen out people. But what do you do when they're in your room? What do you do with family members who you had no choice?
It's
You
a
had no
hard
choice.
one. Yeah.
No choice. So here's a couple of things. I'll give you one that's in the book and one that's not in the book
Yeah.
about family members. This one's in the book. Our co-author, Rick Sapio, tells a story about his mother who she was very difficult. She had a lot of emotional issues, and he had a lot of brothers and sisters, and he would call her every Sunday for an hour and talk to her, and she would go on this rant about his brothers and sisters. And one day he said he decided to draw a line in the sand about what was acceptable behavior in the relationship.
Mm.
And he said, "Mom, I love you very much, but when you go off on these rants about my brothers and sisters, it's very difficult for me. And so starting next week, when you go that direction, I'm just going to say, Mom, I love you a lot. I'll talk to you again next week at the same time. Bye." And I'm going to hang up.
Right.
And she's like, "Yeah, whatever." And so next week, it was about 5 minutes into the conversation, she starts going on a rant about his brothers and sisters. And he stops the conversation. He says, "Mom, I love you a lot. I'll talk to you again next week. Bye." And hangs up. Calls her the following week. And this time it took about 20 minutes. And she starts going into a rant. And he stops her again. He says, "Mom, I love you very much. I'll talk to you again next week. Bye." And hangs up. Jesus, he told me she never did it again. And for the rest of her life, he said, I had the best conversations that I ever had with my mom as an adult throughout the rest of her life, which was just a few more years.
Yeah.
We spoke every week. And he said, look, it wasn't all wine and roses. She had issues. And we talked about those, but we talked about them in a mature way.
Right.
It wasn't just her ranting about people. And he said it completely changed our relationship. And so sometimes it's about drawing a line in the sand and saying, you cannot cross this line. So that's in the book. Here's one that's not in the book. It's a shorter story. And it's incredible. It will be in the second edition.
Oh,
I
man.
had one person who, I wrote about drawing the line, and I told the Rick story. And she said, oh, we used to have a family member, one of our family members who would come to family dinners. We'd have these huge family dinners, and she would throw this verbal grenade in the dinner, and people they'd start yelling, they'd be upset, and
Flipping tables.
oh yeah, it would clear the room, and she would just do this every time.
Wow.
And so we all met, and we came to an agreement that the next time she throws a verbal grenade out, we all would look at her and say, oh, okay, and go back to saying whatever it was that we were saying and don't engage. And so the very next dinner,
Interesting.
she sure enough said something that was really inappropriate, threw it out there, and people went, oh, wow, okay. And then went back to their conversation, and she was like, oh, and she did it one more time. And after that, she mostly stopped coming to the dinners. She would come occasionally, but nobody empowered her. She was looking to rile people up for whatever reason. Who knows what she got out of that? I don't.
An emotional reaction from people.
Yeah, and when she wasn't getting the emotional reaction, she stopped.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, love that story. It's definitely going in the second edition.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because it's almost like you get like this high from getting people to emotionally react.
Yeah.
Right?
Those are not people I want in my room.
No. So speaking of people that you want in your room, what would be the acceptance criteria, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what would be the guidelines of what you want in the room, right? Because it seems like character would be a big one.
Well, you're on the right track. What you need to do is determine what your values are. What are your personal values? Now, when I tell somebody, look, give me a list of your top 7 personal values, it's like deer in the headlights. They're like, now I'm not going to put you on the spot for this one, Jesus, so you don't have to say anything.
Thank you.
Yeah. What I do when I say, give me your top 7 values, they'll go, honesty. Okay, that's one. Give me 6 more. And they're clueless. People have not thought about what their personal values are. So you got to get really good with your personal values.
Mm.
Now, here's a place to begin. Start with deal breakers. What are the kinds of behaviors that are just completely unacceptable that you won't tolerate in your life? Now, I am going to put you on the spot with this one.
Okay, I want to put you on the spot too now.
Okay,
we were praying.
I'll take it. Give me a deal breaker, something in your life where you're like, nope, I don't want that in my life. A behavior.
In a relationship is
personal, professional relationship. Yeah. Either one.
So dishonesty
Yep.
is big. I would say that would be the top. I don't know if it's the top is, but it's definitely the top.
Yeah. So that's it. That's a good example of a deal breaker for
Mhm.
me. And I thought of this when I first heard Stewart talk about the concept of the book, drama.
Mm.
People who are dripping in drama. Now we all have drama. I have drama.
Right.
You probably have drama. We all have a little drama.
Right.
But it's the people that their entire life is just drama laden.
Mm.
And I realized I had several people in my life that were just full of drama.
Mm.
And it was all my fault. I let them in. I let them into my room.
Mm.
In one case, I knew they had drama. And I thought, well, I could deal with it. I know they got drama, but I can deal with it. What I didn't realize was all the people around them didn't want to deal with it. And so what I thought was okay, they created chaos for other people. And so that became a deal breaker for me, people that are just constantly dripping in drama.
Yeah. Now I'm going to
Yeah.
play dumb here, and because there's a lot of viewers, listeners that are tuning into the show, and maybe they've never read the book, right? So when we talk about a room, are you talking more specifically about your life, your career, personal, professional?
It's
What is
remember it starts here and ends here.
right?
The room is your brain. It's your mind. It's all the relationships that you've had in your life. So the room is probably an auditorium. It's big. There are many, many people. Some of them are close, right under the light with you. Some of them are in the far recesses of the room.
Right.
Some that you don't want to play a prominent role anymore. You can't get them out because they're in your
Right.
head already.
Right.
Those you put in a box and put high on a shelf.
Mm, I love that analogy. Yeah.
They're in a box and on a shelf.
So the
Um,
way it's protecting your brain,
yeah,
what's going to
exactly.
influence you, what's not going to influence you, right? Now, we talked about the past and everything too. Well, a little bit, not really. Just one scenario. So it's also changing your way of thinking, wouldn't it
Yes.
be?
Yeah.
Because
So
if you're
what you want to do is
programmed one way, you have to reprogram.
you have to get good with your values. So once you get good with your values, then you know what to screen for. And so
Right.
what you want to do is hire a doorman. Now, I don't mean actually literally hire a doorman, but it's your conscious and subconscious mind
Mm,
that screens out people who are trying to get into your life. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it a guard. You can call it a bouncer. You can call it, if you're in California, you can call it a door person if you
right,
want to,
right, right.
or whatever. But we chose doorman, and the doorman is your conscious and subconscious mind. So what do you train the doorman on? You train them on your values.
Mm,
So you get good with your values. And when you know those, then the doorman looks for values from other people that are incongruent, are dissonant. They don't have to be the same values. You don't have to have the same values I have, but they can't be dissonant with mine. They can't be highly conflicting. When
right.
they're highly conflicting, when they're dissonant, then it's somebody that you don't want to have in your life, and you keep them out on the porch. They don't get in.
Mm, I
So
like
that doorman is critical, and you got to train yourself to be the doorman of your values.
Yeah, that's a critical first step
Yeah.
to anything you're going to be changing. So that's really good. That's a great point. Now, to put you on the spot, values. You've probably thought of this for a while. You have to. So you mentioned 7 or 8 values. What are your 7 or 8 values?
So they're I'll give you the values. They're very much the values that I incorporated into my company, BNI. The first value that I have is giver's gain. I really believe that if you want to If you want people to help you, you've got to help them.
Nice.
So giving is part of the law of reciprocity, and it's very important that you give and help others. The second one would be relationships. I really believe that that life is about more about farming than hunting. It's about building relationships with people. I believe in lifelong learning. Learning didn't stop for me when I finished my doctoral degree. Learning continues to this day. You have to constantly be sharpening your axe. That's one of my values. I believe in, and this sounds contradictory at first, but I believe in both traditions and innovation. I believe your traditions tell people who you are as a person,
Right, right.
do. And for example, one of my family traditions for many years when I had young kids was I was home at night every night between 6 and 6:30 for dinner. That was a family tradition. Unless I was traveling, I was home for dinner. That was a family tradition. But at
Mm,
the same time, you also have to believe in innovation. You have to be looking for the future and what's going on in the future. Another one is a positive attitude. I really believe that you got to find the best
right.
in the situation. We can't control what happens, but we can control how we respond to it. And I believe hope is more powerful than fear.
Mm,
And that begins with a positive attitude. Accountability. I try to hold myself accountable and I hold other people accountable. And the last is gratitude. I believe in showing gratitude. And that's not new age psychobabble. That's science.
mm,
There is science that shows that showing gratitude um, improves performance from others as well as yourself. And I'm talking about science from Harvard Medical School, Yale, Claremont University. All of them have come up with studies that show that how powerful gratitude is. So those are some of my personal values. Here's a value you can have couples values. My wife passed away last year, but we had a couples value. And the couples value was that we would only build relationships with other couples
mm,
who loved and respected each other,
mm.
both.
Yeah,
Because we knew couples who loved each other, but they weren't very respectful.
right.
And we knew couples who were respectful of each other, but they weren't very loving.
Hmm.
And no couple is, my wife and I were never perfect at that. There were times where we weren't loving or respectful, but as a rule, we really treated each other with love and respect.
Mhm.
And we wanted to build relationships with other couples who also loved and respected each other. And so that was one of our couples values.
Nice. I like that because it's like coupling yourself with some people that are more like-minded, but deeper than that. Like they have convictions that are very similar, which is the
Yeah.
values, right?
Yeah.
Um, I have another question that came to my mind is if you had to choose out of the whole list of values, one, which one would you choose?
Well, luckily you don't have to choose. You,
I
you
know.
can have multiple values, and you should have multiple values. But if I had to say which to me is the most important, it would probably be giver's gain. And here's why. We all have people who are in our story.
Right.
I have people who made a difference in my life. As a young man, my parents certainly made a great, powerful difference in my life. But in school, I had teachers who made a difference in my life, and I could tell stories about what they did and how it impacted me. But to me, the most important thing is
Mm,
not who's in my story. The most important thing is whose story am I in?
mm,
Whose life have I changed? Have I changed anyone's life? Am I in anyone's story?
right.
That's the important thing. And the whole idea of giver's gain is about helping other people. And you help enough other people, you're going to be in people's story
Right.
because you've made a difference in their life. And to me, that's what life should be about, is making a difference for other people. So
Totally.
that's why it would be number one.
I love that. Be a giver. And you definitely are a giver.
Yeah,
So
thank
let's say, and we're just throwing scenarios out there and just things that come in the top of my mind because I am interested to knowing your thoughts behind this and also the book and everything. Is say you have a person, and say we're only looking for people that that have that giver heart mentality. all that, right? That character. And they work really hard at it, right? I call it loving. They just care,
Yeah.
right? They take an interest in your life.
Yeah.
You let them in the door, right? Fix the criteria, but then you really get to know them. You start seeing selfishness comes up.
Yeah.
You start seeing deceit. You're like, now I know this person's true colors.
Yeah.
I wish I would have never let them in the door.
Yeah.
What do you do with that scenario?
So there's a couple of things to do. One is homeopathic doses,
Hmm.
and the other is benign neglect. Both are very powerful techniques. Benign neglect is where you just gradually withdraw from the relationship over time. You connect with them far less often. Homeopathic doses are when you do connect with them. It's very homeopathic dose is the minimum dose necessary to treat something. So, for example, if you were going to go to another city where you maybe you lived before and that person's there, or you're going to be somewhere near that individual, don't call them a month in advance and let them know you're going to be nearby. Instead, email them the day before. This is homeopathic doses. You email them the day before and say, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'm available for coffee between 1 and 1:30 if you want to meet. And you send it to them. First of all, they may not get it in time and not respond. And secondly is if they do, then you've limited the amount of time and you've limited the environment so that it's not like, let's go out to dinner, let's spend the evening together.
Yeah.
Now, look, I don't like burning bridges. So I like homeopathic doses. I like benign neglect where you just let the relationship dissipate over time. I've got my son is like, why would you do that, Dad? Just tell them they're idiots and you don't want to be with them anymore. Okay, buddy, I get it. That works for you, but that's not my style. And so I would rather let the relationship dissipate than to be confrontational. And so there are many ways that you can deal with it, but homeopathic doses and benign neglect are the techniques I like.
Nice. Last question, because we are coming up on time, and I definitely want to be considerate, is what are some advice, tips that people can start making, like taking action immediately right now to live a happier life?
Yeah. So, and I'm okay on time. We get towards the end of the book, and I talk about balance in the book, and we talk about balance in the book. So, Jesus, would you like to know the secret to balance?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing the people who are watching this would also like to know.
Definitely.
So lean in carefully. I'm going to give you the secret to balance. Forget about balance. You'll never have it. Now, when I tell people that, they're like, seriously? I was hoping for something good. I'm going to give you something good, I think. But I think there's an innate problem with the idea of balance in life, because we look at balance like scales. Our life must be, like scales.
Right.
My personal life has to be in balance with my professional life. My spirituality has to be in balance with my health. It's all this perfect balance. And I just think that's impossible. I think life is more of a juggling act than a balancing act.
Yeah.
And if we look at life from a perspective of balance, we will almost always be out of balance somewhere. So here's the good part. Although I don't believe you can have balance, especially if you are a business person or a salesperson, man, I don't think you can have balance, but you can live a life of harmony. And harmony is different than balance. It's more than semantics. Even the graphic for harmony, the yin and the yang,
Right.
are out of balance if you separate them. Right? Even the yin and yang, if you pull them apart, they're out of balance.
Interesting.
So harmony is, I love it. My life was not balanced, but I have a life of harmony. I traveled throughout most of my career before COVID, constantly, Jesus, I have 2.3 million miles on one airline, on just one airline. I was, on the road every other week. But one of the techniques that I think is really important to create a life of harmony is three simple words: be here now.
Mm.
Wherever you are, be there. Be fully present. My son's 27. When he was 17, he and I were sitting down in front of our big screen television and we were playing a game of Halo. And he was kicking my butt. And we were buffering up to the next level. And I said to him, I said, "Hey, buddy, was I around enough for you as you were growing up?" He was 17. He said, "What?" I said, Was I around enough for you
Yeah.
while you were growing up?" He said, "You're around all the time." I said, "Well, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm actually gone about like every other week for a few days." He's like, yeah, I noticed, but I don't know. It's like when you're here, you're like totally here. Can we
Mm.
get back to the game now? I'm like, yes, we can. Back to the game now. So the key is, don't be at home thinking about the project that has to be done at work.
Right.
Don't be at work thinking about the fact that you didn't spend time with the family last night. Wherever you are, be fully present to that moment. That's one. And we talk about several techniques. Let me give you at least one more. You have to create a life of margins. Like a paper has margins. Your life has to have margins. You need to have time for yourself,
Right.
for you to do things that you want to do. Your life, even when life was crazy and my kids were young and I was traveling, I always, or almost always, had what I like to call a mental health day.
Hmm.
And that was, one day in a week where I'm not going to travel. I'm going to just stay home. I'm not going to work. I'm going to be with the family. I'll watch movies. I'll barbecue. I'll be in the pool. I'll hang out. It's a mental health day.
Right.
That was my margin. And the truth is, the people who have margins in their life are creating a life of harmony. It might be out of balance,
Hmm.
but it's a life of harmony. And I think there's a big difference. And I think one can live a life of harmony, even if one's life is out of balance.
I love that because to me, the way I translate that and digest that is being almost like unplug. If I'm
Yeah.
with my family, unplug from work because it's about, I mean, yes, there's always going to be things you stress and worry about with work, right? Or I could have done this, what ifs, right? But if I'm present, I'm emotionally present,
Yeah.
I'm there with my family, right? I'm engaging, I'm giving, the giver's gain, right? I'm
Yeah.
giving, right? It's hard to, and I struggle with this, where after a long day of work, man, I got to give to my family, right?
Yeah.
And that's when your family needs you the most,
Yeah.
right? And it was like, drink another cup of coffee. Like that's what runs through my mind, but that's not the solution. I'm like, no, because you're going to stay up all night while everyone's asleep.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because it's also mixed with gratitude.
Yeah.
Like, am I content with where I'm at, family, everything? Like, I have a lot to be grateful for,
Right.
right? I mean, everything with the pandemic, yeah, it's 2020 has been a very difficult year for a lot of people.
2020 was a very difficult year, no question about it. But
Right.
let's look at the bright side.
Exactly.
What if this had happened in 1990?
Mm,
No technology,
right.
no Skype, no Zoom, no online technologies that allow us to stay connected and to even potentially do business with each other. None of that. In the middle of COVID, the craziest year I've ever experienced, the company I founded, BNI, we passed over 11 million referrals to our members.
That's
We
awesome.
generated for our members over 16 billion with a B, $16 billion worth of business
Mm,
for each other during COVID. There are companies today that are in existence because they were able to stay connected online. We transitioned 10,000 in-person meetings to 10,000 online meetings.
wow.
So, I mean, we were dealt a bad hand, but it could have been worse.
You could have.
It could have been 20 years ago, 30 years ago, in which case, who knows
Right.
what would have happened? It would have been far worse than what it was. And look, it was a horrible year last year. My wife passed away. I couldn't do a normal memorial. I had to do an online memorial. I get it. I get it as much as most people.
Yeah.
But you also have to look at the bright side. The technology is what has really saved us
Right.
during these crazy times.
And I was going to say to on top of that is, though a difficult year, there's still a lot to be grateful for, right?
Yeah.
Our health. Um, there's people that have it way worse,
Yeah.
right? Their living situation too, right?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's what translated to me, and I really love that because that also helps on being a giver. Is when you're able to have that mindset change, make
Yeah.
that time, look at life work balance differently, right?
Work
So
balance or work harmony.
work harmony. I love that. I'm going to steal that now.
Feel free.
Well, Ivan, I appreciate it. Any final words?
Well, listen, one of the things I say, because I run the world's largest networking organization, is the old saying, Jesus, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Exactly.
I don't think it's either. I don't think it's what you know or who you know. It's how well you know each other
Mm,
that really counts. It's about taking contacts and making them legitimate connections.
yeah.
Because it's not just who's in your database, it's who's in your database that you can pick up the phone and call.
Mm,
And they would answer your call. And if you ask for a favor, they would be willing to do the favor.
absolutely.
So it's not just who you know, it's how well you know each other that really counts. And so I'm a real believer that networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. It's about
And
cultivating relationships with people.
I love that. And it's very authentic too. And that's
Yeah.
what makes it very attractive and inspiring.
Yeah. And we don't teach this in colleges and universities anywhere in the
No, we
world.
don't. Isn't that crazy? They should be
It
teaching
is
this stuff.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was on LinkedIn, random tangent, but I'll keep it. Is somebody was posting about like in schools and everything. I'm like, they don't teach entrepreneurship in schools. Like, I was like thinking this would be awesome if they had like entrepreneur classes. And now
Yeah.
a lot of colleges do.
They do have entrepreneur classes, but they're still not teaching networking. Now, I'll tell you this,
Yep.
I'm talking, nothing's been finalized, but I'm talking to Harvard Extension School
Hmm.
about teaching a course on networking and social capital.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
fingers crossed,
Yeah, yeah.
it would be wonderful for Harvard to really start the ball rolling.
That would be awesome. You got to send me a message if that gets approved. Give me an update.
Deal. You
Yeah,
got it.
seriously. Now,
It'll be all over my social media.
yeah, I'll be the first one to like it.
All right, good.
Now, if somebody wants to get a copy of this book, where can they go to purchase this?
Right. It's available at whatever bookstores are still around in the world, and of course on Amazon.com.
Awesome.
Who's in Your Room is widely available, definitely on Amazon. It was a best-selling book. It did well internationally, so you can get it there. You can also get a lot of my content at ivanmisner.com, my blog. A lot of free content up there, and of course, anyone interested in BNI can go to bni.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ivan, and you make it a great day. All right.
Hey, thanks, Jesus. It was great talking to you.
You too.